Thank you guys for joining me here on the last segment of today's show. Just to kind of finish off the unanswered sort of series that we had going here for a couple of days. We didn't get to it yesterday because of all the craziness that happened with week 12. So I wanted to fit it in here and kind of finish off the series talking about our last division that we still didn't get to, the AFC West. Just going through some things that I'm still wondering about, not necessarily worrying about, but just, still kind of interested in learning more about what the future could hold around these questions for each team. So, starting off with the Los Angeles Chargers, the question that I have for them is where do they look when it comes to the offensive side of the ball outside of their rookie wide receiver, Lad McConkey? Who else is the go-to guy? Who else do they look to when Lad McConkey is not really, there or he's unavailable, right? Maybe he's facing a double team or something like that, and they force somebody else to beat them. Who is that one person, right? We saw another good test of it yesterday where Lad McConkey, pretty much did his thing as much as you could ask for a rookie, but I think it was still evidence that this Chargers team was missing a pretty significant piece on offense, right? They still need another guy that can create separation and has the trust and security for Justin Herbert to make tight throws or force the ball to him, or even just, get him in situations where he knows that if he gets this wide receiver, this weapon, whoever it is, in a certain spot, he knows that they're going to win that battle more often than not. They're going to beat their man in one-on-one combat more often than not. And I don't really think that they have that person outside of Lad McConkey. The running game is good. I like J.K. Dobbins. I like Gus Edwards as well. But we saw yesterday how it really wasn't there. Once J.K. Dobbins went down, they had to rely on the passing game a lot more. And also, their defense wasn't necessarily shutting the Ravens or the Bengals down completely. They allowed around, I think it was 28, 29 points to the Bengals, and then yesterday 30 points to the Ravens. So the defense really isn't giving you anything. So what do you do from there? You can't just be in a situation where you have no answers and you're just kind of throwing up a prayer, right? Clint, I think Aaron Rodgers most likely retires, or he tries to finish the Favre complete circle and heads to Minnesota. I like that. I had that on my list too. I just felt like, I don't know. I mean, if Darnold moves on, why not have him there with JJ McCarthy? But I mean, that one's not a bad option either, especially with that offense. I love Kevin O'Connell as a play caller. I think he's one of the best in the business right now. So I think he would do great there with the offensive line that they have. If they could just protect him, they certainly can. That would be a great fit, I think, even for a year or two once J.J. McCarthy, gets back from his injury and gets eased back into it. What better guy to learn from than Aaron Rodgers? So that's not a bad suggestion either. But yeah, here just on the Chargers, somebody else needs to step up, and I don't really know where it's gonna come from, and I don't really think it's okay for it to be a rookie at this point in time for to have as your bona fide number one target. It is what they're dealing with right now, and they're doing pretty well with it. But if I just need to know who I can trust on this team outside of Lad, outside of J.K. Dobbins, when I need a play and I know Lad McConkey's going to get doubled, who's going to step up for Justin Herbert and this offense? Because they're doing too good to just, be in a situation where they have no faith in anybody else, right? And they're just throwing up a 50-50 ball. They deserve better than that. So that's still what I'm looking out for from the Los Angeles Chargers. Then we look at the Denver Broncos here. Really, basically, it's just what more can they do for Bo Nix? Obviously, this pick has been a home run pick for the Denver Broncos, kind of making me take back what I said about them and their decision to take Bo Nix. I wasn't really a fan of it, but he's really showing why he could be the offensive rookie of the year, right? He's in contention with it with Jaden Daniels. I still would give my vote to Jaden Daniels, but really Bo Nix is making a really good case for himself. And just each and every week, like the Broncos are in a wild card spot right now. If they make the playoffs, like it would be something I had no, any inclination or any thought that that the Broncos would even be near the playoff conversation with the situation that they had going on, a rookie quarterback coming in, the whole Russell Wilson thing. I never thought the Broncos would be here, but he's doing his part to kind of contribute to that. The defense, the defense they already have there is really helping him out, knowing that he has a defense that has his back that can limit teams to like 20 points or like 22, 23 points max, and they could work with that the way that offense is playing right now. But the question is, what more can they do for Bo Nix? I believe that they could probably get him a better running game. The running game isn't necessarily, contributing as much as the defense is. So if they could improve the running game, and this is a more long-term question, if they could improve the running game a lot more going forward, I think that would be great. I could have said wide receiver, but Josh Reynolds, he's been injured and been on the IR for a while. So once he comes back, I think they're going to have enough. But I think the running game, I think with Javonte Williams there, I'm not sure if that's a direction they want to still pursue, right? Because I believe he's on the last year of his contract. I don't think he has a fifth-year option, so they could move on from him after this year if that is the case. And I'd be interested to see if they go after, I don't know, like dare I say, like an Ashton Genty in the draft or something like that. I don't know right now where they're picking exactly, but I can't think it's anywhere that far away from where Ashton Genty would go in the draft. So why not maybe entertain that? But I think really that's the main thing for me. If they could get a running game, a pretty reliable one around Bo Nix, I think this offense could take another step next year. Because I think this year they can make the playoffs, but I don't think they're going to go much further than that. So that's the Denver Broncos. Clint here, appreciated, good info. One more, would you sub Goff for Bo Nix this week? Need maximum points and Bears are rough on the pass. Yeah, I could check real quick. I don't know who Bo Nix is playing this week. Let's see. Where is it? The Broncos are playing who? Oh, they're playing the Browns. The Browns are tough too, though. That's tough. I would probably still go with Jared Goff. They're playing at home. Sam Darnold just had a pretty decent game against the Bears too, and both of their offenses are two of the best in the NFL. So I would still probably go with them. The Browns defense is pretty good. They have a lot of good players, and Myles Garrett is a monster too. So I would feel safer with Jared Goff, in my opinion. But if you want to take my opinion when it comes to fantasy, so that's what I would do if I was in that situation. But here to just round off this segment with the last two teams, we got the Raiders now. The question I have for them is, what do they do to get their hands on Shedeur Sanders? That is the question. I'm not thinking about the head coach, the offensive line, the weapons, the defense, until I can find a way to get Shedeur Sanders in Las Vegas. I think outside of football, I think it makes so much sense because, and I think this is the biggest point around it, is that because the Raiders need a lot, obviously, right, on defense, some other receivers, a lot of receivers, the running game I think is the worst in the NFL. The offensive line could get better. They need a lot of pieces, right? And obviously you go through free agency to get guys in, but when you think of Las Vegas, obviously, it's attractive because of the city and everything like that, right? But you want to go to the Raiders because you want to play with guys there, and they have a guy like that in Max Crosby, but they need more. Bringing in a guy like Shedeur, obviously you get a great quarterback on the field with a lot of talent and skills, right? But I think when it comes to attracting talent, he brings that as well. On top of the city, coming to live in Las Vegas and everything like that, coming in and playing with a guy like Shedeur and knowing you have a great young quarterback, I think that's super important for a team like the Raiders to attract more players than they're already going to get. Maybe not even that much because of who's on that team. If you bring in a guy like Shedeur Sanders, I think receivers are going to want to come play with him. Running backs, all these guys that, might, turn their head away from Las Vegas. If you look and they have a good young quarterback there that has a lot of promise in him, why not, they entertain the possibility of coming to Las Vegas and actually playing. So that's really, I think, the biggest point around this. If you can have, like they call it a box office attraction like Shedeur Sanders, outside of just football in general and getting your franchise quarterback in there, I think it's important to attract players with that superstardom that you get with Shedeur. So I think that's the biggest question. What do they have to do to make sure Shedeur gets there? And I think it makes too much sense, right? With Shedeur, the lights, the attention in Las Vegas, kind of resurging the Raiders in his image and him really being the catalyst for all of that. I think it makes too much sense, and I think that has to be their number one goal heading into the future, right? So that's what I'm thinking about the Raiders. That's all I'm thinking about with them. And lastly, we have the Kansas City Chiefs. It's hard to think of unanswered questions, but to me, the biggest one that we're not going to get an answer to until the playoffs is, are these close games a problem? That's the conversation I've heard around really just everywhere I see when people are talking about the Chiefs. Is it a problem that they're in so many close games with teams that maybe they should be blowing out, like the Carolina Panthers this past week? They only beat them with a game-winning field goal, so that's pretty unusual, right? Because you're talking about the defending two-time Super Bowl champions to only win by 3 points over the abysmal Carolina Panthers is a bit interesting, but to that I would just say for right now, they're 10-1, and I don't think you just get there by just being lucky or just being in these situations where maybe you don't deserve to win or something like that, or again you're just lucky to be at 10-1. I don't think that's really the case. You have to be very good to have a record like that, and the Chiefs and really just Patrick Mahomes, right? They come through in the biggest of moments. Now, it's not to say that usually in these moments, where the ball kind of tends to lean towards your favor and ends up falling that way, it's not to say that it's not so unlikely that it ends up falling the other way, right? If it's so close in all these games, it's still a possibility that you lose one of these games, right? That's always still a possibility when it's so close like this. But they've been in these situations so many times, and I think that's great to have that experience, right? When, being a Steelers fan, over the last couple of years, everybody just trashes on the Steelers for winning like 17 to like 13 or like 15 to 10 or something like that. But yes, it's ugly, and yes, it's not what people want to see necessarily, but when you build that experience, it's no surprise that the Steelers have been in the most one-score games since Mike Tomlin's been there, and they've won a lot more than the rest of the NFL, and I think that's important, and the Chiefs are just finding ways to win, and no one's going to say anything if they win the Super Bowl over another team by like 1 point or something like that, or if they win all these playoff games by 1 point and they get to the Super Bowl, no one's going to bet against them anyway. If they win by 1 point in the playoffs each and every round, and then they get to the Super Bowl and they're playing like the Lions and their high-scoring offense, no one's going to bet against Patrick Mahomes. Even if the Lions are beating every team by like 14 points in the playoffs, no one's going to bet against Patrick anyway. So I think it's kind of funny how people just bring it up. And, they need to criticize something about the Chiefs, and it's hard to criticize anything about them except, the fact that they're not blowing teams out like a lot of people expect them to. They did get humbled a little bit against the Bills, so that's one thing you could say. But overall, to be 10-1, I don't think it's a huge problem right now, and we'll see how much it does become a factor once we get into the playoffs. But that's still a few weeks away, but for right now, we're going to sign off for today's show. I want to thank you guys for joining me. Please remember to like, follow, and subscribe to the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast, as well as following the network on all forms of social media. And if you want to check out more of the Chip Shot Football Podcast, you can go on YouTube and go to the GSMC Podcast Network channel and the GSMC Sports Network channel to catch more content around this show. And also on the live shows, if you want to see more of those, you can join me each and every weekday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time for more discussions, breaking news, debates, and just a bunch of things around the NFL with me, Manny Maradiaga, as your host. Thank you guys again for joining me. We'll be back again tomorrow, same time, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time, to look towards Week 13 and some of the Christmas, or not the Christmas, some of the Thanksgiving Day games on Thursday.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna go to